do tonight, which is to put a budget together when we're even more clueless than we normally are about how much money we have in it.
Well, we're normally very clueless.
Right, but now we're
At
more
this- But
clueless.
at this stage of the game, but every year we have to
Correct.
put a budget together, not knowing the final revenue figure, but having some idea whether or not we're gonna be able to get
But
to that.
we have much more time this year, that's my point.
We have some more time this year.
We have at least a month, if not more.
And we have a different situation here, that, you know, each one of these cuts, at least from where we are right now, each one of these cuts hurts.
Right.
And what we should be doing is putting together a budget for what it takes to educate the kids.
But we've gotta start over again, Cliff, because this isn't it.
Well, then that's where we
You
need
know,
to go.
I mean, we've been trying to deal with the circumstances. Ideally, I agree with you. In principle, I agree with you. We're trying to deal with the circumstances as they've been given to us.
And that's the problem that we have. We are working under, well, this is how much money you've got. And that isn't so. And in fact, we never really know how much money we've got. What we should be doing is putting together a budget for what it takes to educate the kids. And then meet that budget. And the town should provide us with that much money. We are bare bones. You hear me say it, it's a broken record now. But that's where we're at. We're bare bones. And we should be coughing up this much money, enough money to educate the kids. And, you know, that's what the Massachusetts Constitution says. You've got to educate them, the whole kid. And that's why when we're looking at the monies that are coming through the state, we can look at, the governor is talking about filling to the 2010 level of Chapter 70.
Right.
Filling us up to foundation level.
Right.
And that's a lot of money.
Right.
Where previously he said he was going to level fund it at 2009 level, which wouldn't bring us up to foundation level. So, all of this funding of education is being done the wrong way, frankly. We should be working up to what it costs to educate the kids properly and present that. And when we have filled up as much as we can at the town level, the state should be kicking in the rest of it. But unless you stress the system, nothing's going to ever change.
Well, when Cliff says we're bare bones, and I'm not advocating that we have to get up to state average, but if you wanted to bring North Reading up to the state average for per pupil spending, it would require $7 million added to our school budget. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
But just think if we could get $1,000 more per student, $2.8 million. That's not going to happen either. But that's when we say bare bones, that kind of paints the picture for you.
We should be working in that direction and not down. We should be working up to the right level and not down to some fictitious level. Because someday, we're not going to have a dime to spend if we keep going in the direction we're going.
David?
In thinking that way, it might be helpful to go back and look at what we did not restore this year. Remember the three-tiered pyramid? We did not restore positions that were cut 2 years ago. Technology, library services. We did not address all the requirements at the high school around class size and additional courses. And we did not address the needs at the middle school. For example, we did not restore the International Foods and Cultures program. We, in art, music, and computers, we have our teachers in all of those areas teaching an overload. So minimally, if we were to restore the positions that were cut the previous 2 years to bring us whole, then we are probably looking at 7 to 8 additional staff members above and beyond what is here. Secondly, we have systematically reduced expenses, the instructional expenses at the school level. 2% here, 2% there, year at 5%. year after year. So we could easily put some of that money back into the schools. And where that shows up is in terms of our textbooks and not purchasing them at the rate that we feel is necessary to keep us whole. And then the third category that I would be looking at might be the whole area of fees. I think we have for a long time made the goal of reducing fees in athletics and extracurricular activities, busing, and the tuition costs in kindergarten, and particularly in kindergarten, in the full-day program. Those would be areas that, with additional money, we certainly could be talking about.
But I think the first thing you have to do with additional money is protect any of these cuts that are in the level 2, before we do anything else. And I don't think we can, I mean, I agree, I'd love to restore some of the programs at the high school. I'd love to offer that phys ed elective for juniors and seniors, because I think that was a great course, and it freed up a lot of spaces in our other electives. But I do think we need to make sure we cover all of these positions, if we can, with whatever money we're going to get.
A library, without a librarian, is a little like having a fire department without any hoses. It's the same kind of a thing. Or a police department without any weapons. It doesn't make sense. And we need to come to grips with that, and the rest of the town needs to come to grips with that. And we need to fund the schools.
A good example of that is, you know, I've scheduled several intertown collaborative meetings, Andover, Wilmington, Reading, and Linfield. We met again last week, and the focus was how can we collaborate on libraries, food services, and IT, technology. So I asked to have representatives from library services in those 5 communities. We brought our only librarian, Mrs. Jablonski, Vicki Jablonski, who's on our list to not replace. And we had another town brought they have 4 schools, a neighboring town to our east. They have 4 librarians, one in each school. One was absent, they brought 3. And every other town had representation. So it was very hard to explain how do we run a program with one person when all of the other communities have, in their elementary schools, in their middle school, as well as in their high school, people who work in the area of media and library. This is a 21st century skill.
Well, that gets back to Cliff's point of, and while I agree with him, unfortunately, I don't think the money's there. But we chiseled away at the system until we have, I'd say, pretty much the bare minimum in every one of our programs. Maybe even below the bare minimum in every one of our programs, or in many of our programs. But, you know, the money, as I said, we could probably, if we could get $1,000 for each kid, that'd give us $2.8 million. We could do wonders with that. And that wouldn't even bring us close to the state average. So, David, I don't know how you want to proceed. We've gone over these, I won't say recommended cuts. We've gone over these suggested cuts several times. You've started to set some priorities for these cuts. But if we're not going to vote on them tonight, and I don't think there's anything new here. If you're in the audience and you've been here before, I don't think there's anything new here that would surprise anybody. So, and I don't think we're going to vote. So what's your desire?
Frankly, I'd like to keep away from the priorities. I did that more as an exercise and not something that I thought I could actually stand behind and say there's a clear reason for it, because any one of these in level 2 is is more than just dismantling the district. There are 20 positions here overall. And it is already yielding increasing anxiety within the school department as well as within parents in schools. We've had parents calling and asking questions about what next year will look like in the schools, and that is, and with students as well, that's triggering some huge concerns here. And I understand these are superintendent's recommendations and have not been voted on. There may be other ways of looking at it. I know for most of them, or many of them, the administrators played a part, but not all of them, because they were too difficult to make. And the administrators were not involved in this first pass at trying to categorize them.
Also, remind us all that the reason that the level 2 cuts amount to over $1 million is because of the associated unemployment costs.
Right, we
So,
had to figure it
so as we reduce layoffs, we can also reduce the cost of unemployment. So we also would have to reduce the fringe benefit. But that's
a
a,
good point.
that will help us so as we move down the road. We will be able to kind of get a double bang for our buck as we reduce our unemployment costs.
Jay?
I was just gonna say, to support Mel's argument a little bit, normally, at this time, we would have to have a very specific line-by-line item budget, and it would have to be finalized by now, because the warrant for town meeting's being signed tonight, and that warrant would go on the town meeting, I'm sorry, that article for our budget would go on the town meeting warrant. That's not happening this year. This year, we have the luxury, or if you wanna call it luxury, of getting a final number a little bit later, because they're gonna pass out the actual budget at town meeting. So the deadline normally would be tonight, because tonight's the night that the selectmen are signing the warrant. So we don't have to come up with a final number tonight. It gives us some more time to find out actually what the revenue figures are gonna be, and therefore more time to decide how we're gonna prioritize.
If we could just, though, go back and we can set the parameters from the beginning. When we started with our level services budget, we had approximately a $1.6 million deficit, correct?
1.7, yes.
$1.7 million deficit. We've made, we've approved, I think, 400 and some odd $1,000 worth of cuts in level 1, 430 or 440, depending on what that tuition is, to get us down to a little below 1.3 million, correct?
Correct.
So that's where we stand now, as we wait to find out how much money we're going to have to spend.
Well, and a couple other things happen along the way too.
Yeah.
The amount of money being made available to the school department.
All right, that's why I
Increase.
said 1.6 or 1.
Yes, thank
Right.
you for that
The
correction.
gap is 960.
Right, the gap right now is 964,000. And we, depending on how much we get, the gap will be somewhat smaller.
Yes, and, you know, I keep saying it, but 579,000 is in the salary pool supplement. So that gap is even smaller, right?
No, I
Under
would
level
say,
B?
when you say salary pool, just to clarify,
Well, that, Maureen's number includes step
Oh,
raises
I'm
as
sorry.
well
Yep,
as the salary pool.
Items 2 and
yes.
3, yeah.
Which again is a giant leap, because we're not there yet. Right.
So do you have any more?
Makes it more manageable.
I think the things that we have done in level 1, increasing the fees that we've increased for preschool and kindergarten, a fine for not getting your bus money in early enough so we can plan. Those kind of things are not gonna hurt the education of the children. But when we get into some of these other things, they are amputations. I've used that word in the last meetings that we've had. They're amputations, and it gets real hard for me to figure out which limb I want to amputate, and I don't think that we should be amputating. We're The difference that we have is based on a townwide allocation of funds.